to Focus on Finance. I'm your host, Melanie Parker. Focus on Finance is brought to you by the Consumer Education Division of the Right Legacy Group. I am super excited to have the Terry Owens here today because for you to work us in and all the millions of things that you do, I can't even begin to, you spin a lot of plates, I can't go through the whole list, but Radcliffe City Council.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's your part-time gig. Mm-hmm. Full-time gig is curator. Is that the right term?
It's
curator?
the Director of Community Outreach and Development at the General George Patton Museum of Leadership.
There you go. I'm glad you said that because I would have loved that. So thank you for sharing that, Terry.
Yeah.
I went to an event at the museum last week.
Yes.
And it was fabulous. It was the 10th anniversary for the Radcliffe Small Business Alliance. Mm-hmm. And the Patton Museum is one of those places that's been there for a really long time.
Yes.
But we kind of take it for granted, I think, as a community.
Right.
And how long have you been there? You're new there, aren't you?
I started there June 23rd or 22 after spending a short amount of time on the Patton Museum Foundation.
Okay.
And that's how I kind of got there, replacing
they just hooked
person
you right
that was like,
in
come on,
there.
Terry, you can do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you got up there last week and talked about everything that's going on, things that started before you got there, things that you have implemented, things that are going on today. I was super excited and interested to learn that you all are a nonprofit.
Yes.
And you need people to write some checks.
We do. And a lot of people don't know that. They'll assume that all the military museums of all of the services have a complete resource, open check that does everything.
Uncle Sam pays for everything.
DOD or Department of Defense has got it covered. For us, we come under the Training and Doctrine Command, or TRADOC, which used to be headquartered in Hampton, Virginia, the Casemate Museum, Fort Monroe.
Gotcha.
And then after post base realignment and closures back in the mid 2006, 2007, we started to move things around as the military got more agile and quick and inclusive, and we went from big things, mechanized and armored, to brigade combat teams, sort of self-inclusive. They got everything they need to do. Well, that affects everything around it, to include how we run museums. And just about every museum has a foundation or an association nested in it. So they all have a 501c3.
Right.
So the monies of the 501c3, of course, is under development and funding, nice titles that they give us. And then you have Department of Defense that covers all of the federal responsibility. So we have half and half in a sense. And our administrative oversight is provided by the United States Army Cadet Command, which is at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Yay, wonderful. And I want to let people know before we really start getting them excited about what's going on at the museum. I want them to know that the gate on 31W is open.
It is open.
So you do not have to go onto the base to get to the museum.
Correct.
And that
was a big move.
Literally opens doors.
It does.
Total pun intended.
It does.
But that means, because when I was telling folks, I'm going last week, I'm going to the museum, RSBA, 10th anniversary, they were like, it's going to be a pain to get in there. No, it's really not, because the gate's open.
Exactly.
You can get in right on 31W between Radcliffe and Muldraugh, pull right into your parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. And when I was walking in, they had all of those
little pylons and the tanks.
The tanks that my son, who was with me, 26 years old, used to climb when he was little, and that was just a really happy thing for him.
It's a good place. It's a good place to grow.
Yeah.
It's a good place to learn. I know when the Armor School relocated and went to Fort Benning, Georgia, what most people don't consider is not only the physical pieces that move, that people have gotten used to, those tank pads, those round cement pads that are somewhat vacant. What doesn't always get taken in consideration are the memories that go with that stuff.
Right.
So a lot of times when we have visitors who hadn't been back since the school left, now they're back and they're kind of standing in the front yard like this going, where's the tiger? Where's it this? Where's it that? And even a couple people have questioned, well, how do you represent leadership? What is that tangible or intangible thing? How do you make the museum stay alive and stay relevant when you're used to seeing big stuff? It's like having a greenhouse, and now you move half of the greenery, but you're still talking about agriculture and horticulture. And so that's what we've had to refine.
Gotcha. I went on your website, knocked around a little bit, and I saw that you have the weapons.
Yes.
And you have uniforms.
We do.
And artifacts.
We do.
And where do those come from?
Some of them are donated by family members whose family members have passed, where they've served in World War I, World War II, and beyond, all the way up to global war on terrorism.
Right.
Some of the things have come from other museums. For example, we're working with Fort Lee to help enhance our display for Vietnam, which has no women in it.
Oh.
How do you talk about Vietnam without the 250,000 women
Yeah.
that served and volunteered
call them
either as
WACs
nurses?
back then?
They call them WACs, the Women's Army Corps and the
Right.
Women's Army Auxiliary
Yeah.
Corps. And so working with that institution with an exchange,
I like
whether it's
that.
permanent or temporary.
Sure. So you all can
that's
just
what we
sort of
do.
change things around and keep it fresh, and
Right.
that's pretty interesting. So
Yes.
you all share some of our stuff with other
We
people
do.
as well?
We do. We
Yeah.
do.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I also said, we want to talk about money on
Right.
top of other things. We want to get people in there because it's so
Right.
exciting. But there are bricks. Let's talk about the bricks.
Oh, the bricks. I love the bricks because they're done here locally. They're not forged here locally, but
Right,
they are
okay.
engraved here locally by
Okay.
Patriot Glazing and engraving. So I get to pick them up after they are ordered on the website for the honor bricks, where we have this path of heroes on both sides of that long walkway. And originally when it was done, it was more of a homage to people who have served or who are still serving. But then as we got better and bigger and we're looking at the audience that we serve, it's, hey, now you can use it for Mother's Day. You can use it for the birth of a child.
Right.
You can celebrate a homecoming of any kind, an anniversary, because all of those individuals and all those special events make up our community. So it doesn't have to be just military transit and say, oh, it's for my grandfather that served,
Right.
or for my mother that served. But it could also be for that set of twins you just had.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's
My
there.
fifth grandchild's on the way.
Exactly.
I'm thinking each of my grandchildren needs a brick over there.
So we have minis that are 2 inches by 2 inches that will be mailed to you. We have the standard brick of 4 by 8, has 5 lines on it, and then we have the 8 by 8. And we've had things where units have gotten together from Vietnam, as a matter of fact, where they've served together and they wanted a brick to represent their company.
unit.
And
I
so
love that.
they get done overnight. Sometimes they can get done in a day.
Yeah.
And then I go pick them up, and
Okay.
I'm the one who places them down along the
Do you
the
let
path.
folks know once they're
I
put on the
do.
path?
I will send them a
Aw.
picture or in
Yeah.
a little note and
That's
say,
the
hey,
ultimate walk
we
of
put
fame,
that out
isn't
there.
it?
That is the ultimate. That is the ultimate.
I love that. You mentioned grandfathers. You have the World War II barracks
We do.
out there. Both of my grandfathers went through Fort Knox, so that's special.
It is special. There's a lot
Yeah.
of history. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had a small group come together, and we were thinking about how do we get the second floor done, because the first floor is done.
Right.
But we still have memories to capture, the dream catchers, on the second floor. So they're tankers, which they're happy now. They're like, yeah, now we have some more to do. And so we're
Yay.
going to finish that up and renovate that. So you'll have a whole up and downstairs experience, to include a mannequin that we're working on where it's a drill sergeant.
Oh, boy.
And that drill
Is he gonna
sergeant
look
will
mean?
be able to speak. It's got that hand thing. It's got
Right.
a mop, and
Oh,
it's
I
telling.
love it.
So someone's going to have memories like I did with my drill sergeants when I was
Yeah,
enlisted
yeah.
first, and because they're part of who
Bittersweet.
you are. It is.
Yes.
It's a bittersweet.
Yeah.
So as we improve on those things or enhance on those things,
Yeah.
to include 2 tanks that will be relocated there. So that's what's kind of going on as we go from day to day.
Yeah.
And we have a mock-up of the museum before we move things around. We move them on the table just to make sure it's succinct, that we also are in compliance with ADA rules, as well as the equipment that we have to move in out of there.
There's so much behind the curtain, isn't
It
there?
is. It
People
is.
have no idea. I think the cool thing about the museum, personally, is it's nostalgia.
It is.
For the people, the Army brats, you are
It
retired
is.
military. My father was in for 29 years. My grandfathers were in. And then there are the folks, Hardin County is a military
It is.
place.
It is.
But there are people who have never had direct ties to the military. And it's super important for them to understand
It is.
and acknowledge and appreciate that military background.
That's the key, because you
Yes.
don't want a them against us.
No,
kind
absolutely
of thing
not.
of military,
No, yeah.
non-military, or World War I, World War II
Right.
versus what we're doing now.
Yeah.
It's not a us against them
No.
type of memories.
Yeah.
So when people do visit, big, small, old, whatever, you know, I look at who they are and I always ask, what brings you to the museum? And they'll say,
Right.
oh, my grandfather,
Yeah.
or I heard about it, want to come see it, it's on my list.
Right.
So we've had people from Poland,
Wow.
Germany, Japan, let me see where else, France, and it's on their list as well as in the States, Michigan, Wisconsin,
Sure.
and they're down here trying to figure out what this thing is, because there's still some curiosity
Yeah.
when you talk about Patton, and I get to
Right.
talk with granddaughter Helen Patton,
That's
who's in
amazing.
France. So her father was George Patton IV,
Okay.
who was here at Fort Knox in charge of the armor schools.
Is he the
was
one that
person.
the museum is
It's
named
his
after?
father.
His father. Okay.
Which is
Because there's a bunch of them.
There's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and there's some name changes, and
Sure.
people want to
All
know where the
related.
third is. I was like,
Yeah.
no, there's not a third.
Okay.
George Patton Jr. would have been the third, but he didn't want to be the third. He
Right.
wanted to stay as a junior.
Okay.
So you have all of that in there. Their family line or tree is posted on Google, and it's two separate, almost equal ones. You almost have to kind of transpose one over the other
Sure.
to see where the Mercer and the Walters and the Pattons come from.
Okay.
And the majority of all of the Patton brothers came out of Virginia because they went to VMI, the Virginia Military Institute.
Well, there you go.
Whereas Patton went to VMI and West Point.
Oh.
So so when you say Patton, I now say which one? Which most people won't
Sure.
say which one. They only know.
They only know of the one.
But there
Right.
are several.
And don't know nearly enough about him.
Correct.
So they need to come to the museum.
They
Because
do.
It stood out to me that last week when you were speaking about it, he wasn't a great student, was he?
He had a few challenges.
He had challenges.
It is noted that it's believed that he was dyslexic, and so he had a hard time, like most people do.
Right.
He had expectations to live up to
But it didn't
because
hold him
he's
back.
a brat. He's a brat. So his family, of course, his lineage in the Civil War. So
Right.
there's things like most of our teenagers do. They have this weight of expectations
Right.
of things they have to do because their parents
Yeah.
have also achieved those
Military
things.
life's a little different.
It's a-
even
it's-
for the
it's a
family
little different.
members.
It's a
Not as
little
much for the
different.
active duty, but even
Exactly.
for the family members.
Exactly.
It's a little different.
I mean, he
Yeah.
was a pentathlete. A lot of people don't know that he was in the Olympics.
Right. I did not know that until I read it today on your website. Folks, you've got to
Exactly.
check out this website.
He was a great girl dad. You know,
Yeah.
a great. You know, he's a regular person, but he was in an era where leadership was needed when you're talking about a world war
Right.
and having the United States join their allies in a world war,
Wow.
which was an unknown. I mean, we did it in World War I. By the time we got to World War II, you know, politics was different. Social economics was different at that
Right.
time.
There's like a
and
paradigm shift.
there was a
between
paradigm.
each.
It
Yeah,
was.
Yeah.
It was. So he was in both. You know, Patton
Wonderful.
Jr.
And
was in both.
what was his sport in the Olympics?
He did fencing,
fencing. Okay.
horse riding,
Wow.
and weaponry.
Wow. Were those all together? Was it like a trifecta or
Separate.
all separate?
All separate.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Steeplechase. He was out there. He
Yeah.
was.
I'm feeling a little inept.
He had a little swagger.
I would say so.
He had a
He
little
did not
swagger.
let a learning disability
He
hold
did
him
not.
back. Isn't that a lesson?
He did not. He did not.
That's a lesson to everyone, and wound up to be a great leader.
He did.
So if I come and I go through that gate on Dixie, which
Yes.
I'm super excited about, and I come in, how much do I have to pay to get in the door?
It's free.
Free.
It is free.
That's
it's one of the
wonderful word.
few left that are free.
Right.
So when people talk or assume, I would say when they're talking, you must have all the money in the world. You must, because the way the building looks, I said, no, it
Right.
doesn't work that way. And
Yeah.
so we have to try to honor our capital strategic plan to figure out who are our longtime donors and how do we get new ones. Because there's
Right.
things that we have to buy that the Army does not cover. So, for example, the artifact, but the display that's being built today by the 19th Engineers on post, which I won't tell you what it is, but I tell you there's wood
won't say
and
anything.
things involved. Those things have
I'm
to be
excited.
bought.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's those things.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
so
And you have monthly expenses, obviously.
we do. We
so
do.
are those the things that like the government takes care of, and then these
The foundation
projects?
has to buy.
Okay.
So it's the phone bill, it's the cable,
Right, right.
It's those the insurance.
Yeah. How big is your staff even?
Right now we have 2 people there.
Okay.
It's
Y'all
the
get
curator.
all of that?
We have the federal employee, which is Tyler Reed, the curator.
Okay.
And you have me under the foundation.
Right.
And we have a temporary loan called Military Manpower, which is Lieutenant Alamo, who's with the cadet summer training. So as he's about to go on his way, we have an extra pair of hands. And then we're
Wonderful.
in the flux of trying to figure out or what's going to be decided on our current director. So physically there are 2.5 bodies that are there.
Okay.
But we act like 20.
Sure.
We do.
I relatable. I get it. You
Yeah.
know, and you can have 10 people, but you're always going to have those 2 or 3 that pretty much do it all.
Correct.
That is just with anywhere. So you all
Yeah.
just eliminated the dead weight.
We did.
You just
We did just
give
just
us 3
2.
doers
That's
and
it.
let's do it.
2.5.
Everybody else,
we
that's
just
just
do it.
space around the water cooler.
That's
Get them
it.
away. Yeah, I get it.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's
You
what we
have that
do.
wonderful event space.
We do. We have the large Abrams room.
It's huge.
Named after General Creighton, and then we have a room next to it, which is a conference room. And then on the far left, I refer to that as our Huey room because it's the backside of the helicopter from our Vietnam era exit. So we've had things there where the cadets are there doing their training for, say, driver's awareness. We have hosted Colonel Eisenbeeke, which is now General Eisenbeeke, who's the Deputy Commanding General of Cadet Command.
Right.
So we had her ceremony, her promotion ceremony
Nice.
back there. We have ceremonies in the gallery, outside on the front yard, as I said, the front lawn,
Yeah.
and at the far end where you have the Armor Memorial Park.
Gotcha. And in the front, though, I keep going back to these tanks because memories of my children when they were little climbing on those. So those are obviously interactive.
They
People
are.
are allowed to climb on those, right?
They are.
How many are there?
Right now we have 3 there. At the far end, we have the M3 Lee that's waiting to go into restoration.
Right.
So there's going to be a tank moved from the Chaffee Gate and another one that was on installation, and those 2 will be relocated there.
Nice, nice. And I want folks to know that because a beautiful Saturday afternoon or Friday afternoon, you're closed Sundays and Mondays.
We're closed Sundays and Mondays unless I'm hosting something.
Gotcha. Folks need to just put the kids in the car,
Yeah.
take them to the lake, fly a kite, and then go
Right.
to the museum.
And if they don't have a kite, most likely I'll have one for them because I have.
Are you serious? Look at you.
I have the little
We're
free
so in sync.
library there because you know
Really?
I have little free library
Yeah,
registered boxes
okay.
in Elizabethtown and Funtopia and then 3 different places in Radcliffe.
Right.
So I just took that same concept and had a shelf until I actually get a box done. And so there's books there that I get from some of the local schools
Oh.
and the ones that I buy. And then I hit every store every couple of days. I'll put, fun things to play with balls and
Yeah.
kites and Play-Doh and all that. And that's for the young visitors who may not be so enamored with the
Sure.
museum.
Right.
But when they get to that spot there, they're like, there's stuff. There's
Still
balls,
making
there's-
memories.
Still making memories because they need to have that visitor's
Absolutely.
experience too. So on a windy day like this, yes, there are 2, I think, still in the bin
Really?
of kites. Yeah.
I love it. So I'm assuming that could be a donation as well.
It could be because I
Correct?
fund
Stuff
it.
for
It's a
your
good
little-
thing.
Yeah, because
It's a
it sounds
future
like you're
investment.
paying for that out of pocket.
It's a future investment on leadership.
Right.
I've seen some 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds kind of quietly thumbing through the books.
Yeah.
Or I'll listen to the kids who cannot make up their mind as to what they want, so they start doing this. They'll be like, I want 2 of these. I got to have 2 of these.
Right.
And it's really take one as you
course.
go, or you can leave one.
Yeah.
And I
like
watch
that.
them, and they want to pull it all out, and there's nothing to break. The dinosaurs are there, the flashcards are there, because I
like
want them
that.
to learn I want them to laugh and learn at the same time.
Sure.
But I always tell the people that bring them there, parents, grandparents, or what have you, I said, I am not responsible for what happens in the back seat. So if the crayons get there from the coloring books,
love
the
it.
Play-Doh, I
Right. Oh, Play-Doh
I'm
is my
sorry.
arch nemesis when it comes to my kids and grandkids.
I said, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Once you leave the parking lot, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you know, and another thing that I'm thinking of, my wheels are turning with my grandchildren, is to take them to the Dollar General or Dollar Tree and have them buy something
They could.
and then bring it to share with somebody
could.
else and leave on your shelf.
They could. They could.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah.
They,
We'll
they
have to
could,
look
because
at
it
that.
gets ravaged every couple of days. I mean, even
It's a good
last.
problem to have. That means
It's
there's
a good
people
problem.
in there. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good way to say it. It is
Yes.
a good problem to
Yeah.
have.
So do you have, are the schools plugged in? The Hardin County schools?
They're beginning to do
Are
that
they?
now. We've had a homeschool group come
good.
through. We had someone from Rowan County, ROWII County, for JRTC. That came through, and so they're
Awesome.
now trying
Impressive.
to get their tours on the schedule.
Right. Oh, wow, I love
Yeah.
that. And what about, who do you see the most of? What's your average visitor age-wise, would you say? Are they the
Jesus.
retired seasoned folks? Are they the school age?
It really
young
is.
soldiers?
It really
Wide
is
gamut?
stratified. I mean, you can
Wow.
have the little folks that are with Meemaw and them, and
Yeah.
you can have the 97-and-a-half-year-old that came in who was from World War II. His birthday is in August.
And who doesn't
And
love
he was
them?
there. He was coming to see his grandson, who's assigned to 5th Corps headquarters
You're trying
here.
to make me cry.
So he had total recall, and I told him, I said, when I was a second lieutenant in Bad Kreuznach, Germany, in 1st Armored Division, you know, we do these staff rides for professional development.
Yeah.
And we're always given
I
some
love those
part,
little veterans
you know, we get
actors
some
too.
part of a war to
Yeah.
explain. And I said, my section was the Battle of the Bulge and turning on the Axis. He was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Wow.
So it all, you know, it all comes
Yeah,
back.
did he share stories?
He did.
And,
He did.
oh, what a
and
gift for both of you.
Yes.
Yeah, to have
Yes.
new listening ears, because I'm sure everyone in his family has heard it all.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so yeah.
Yes.
Oh, what a gift. I bet you
It is.
you really enjoy that.
I do. I have had the opportunity to meet generations of memories. I have quietly walked up on a lady where she was the granddaughter, and she had a T-shirt on and saying something about her grandfather that served, and she was quietly crying. She was over by the Cadillac. And, you know, you have to approach people lightly. I've had a Black Hawk pilot come in, warrant officer, and he said his grandfather served, and if it wasn't for Patton kind of rolling through everything, his grandfather might not have made it because he was a jumper, and every time they wanted to do night operations, air assault, jumping in, they didn't have any place to jump into.
Oh, wow.
Because Patton had already swarmed over and moved
Yeah.
on out.
It's
So he
done.
says because it's done.
It's done.
So he says because of that,
Yeah.
his grandfather was able to go on and have his family, who had his family, and here's this Black Hawk pilot who's here
I love it.
today. So, which is why you see me post those things
Yes.
called Pat Museum Life. I posted on my own Facebook page.
Yes.
And I put it on the Pat
I love
Museum's
it. I
Facebook
enjoy
page.
every one
so
of
you
them.
can get an idea of who's there. I don't want it to be kind of this mothballed facility.
Oh,
You
it's
come
certainly
in
not.
and
It's
you think you're going to
fabulous.
see the same thing, or you
Right.
already kind of got your arms crossed and you're like, where are all the stuff? Where's the stuff? And we have to be, you know, that continuous protector of history,
Right.
but also stay relevant in making sure that we're capturing history as it's being made.
Good
Even
point.
for the history during segregation times that was not going to be portrayed in that museum. Now I get to pull that stuff out
Bravo.
and share it with everybody and
Right.
talk about people's
History's important.
contributions. It is important because
important.
it's part of that leadership
Right.
where you do that decision-making process that
Mm-hmm.
can really impact generations for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
For a
absolutely.
very long time.
I think we'd be hard pressed to find very many families in Hardin County
Mm-hmm.
that don't have some sort of connection
Right.
to the military and or
Right.
Fort Knox.
Right.
Very hard pressed.
Generationally, economically,
Yes.
you know, all those things of culture
Right.
that get shaped by someone or some group of people sitting around some area of operations who now have to make major decisions. Even the small ones may dovetail into a major action that 10 years, 20 years ago, you didn't know why it happened.
Right.
And now when you go back, you go, oh, That's why that river is over there.
Yeah.
That's why the railroad is over there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that building was there. I didn't know why the county line was drawn the way it was. I didn't know the school was here. Oh, that's the connection to the University of Louisville. Oh, that's why we have the Unknown Project down at the edge of the Ohio River, or this was a Confederate state, or my father, my mother. We are the lockbox of history there, and we grow leaders.
Absolutely. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds fabulous. So when we come to the museum, and I say we because I am definitely bringing my grandbabies.
Yes.
How long would it take for us? How much time should we
If you
allow?
go through it and absorb and appreciate everything, it'll take you 2.5 hours.
Okay. All right. Is that before or after Mimi climbs on the
Oh, well,
tanks
if
out
you
front?
add that in there, might be 3 hours.
It might take me a while to get down. Yeah.
It might.
We'll say 3.5 to be on the safe side.
I had an 8-year-old there Saturday, Caden, and he came, and he's not the first child I've seen this way, but he came with his uniform on.
Did he?
And he,
You really are trying to make me cry.
He was ready.
Was
he was ready. I have him on the website. And he was with his mom and his little brother. And his little brother had on his camouflage leggings. I said, it's the whole family gone. And he told me why he wanted to be there. And he talked about his low-bearing equipment, what we call LBE. So he had on his stuff where he would put his canteen and his ammo pouch. He had a Kevlar. And he had on his sailor's hat, and he had on a little battle dress uniform, also known as the BDU.
Right.
And and the boots.
I love it.
And I said he needs to get on the tank because we kind of reserve letting people crawl up on things, and that's some things that people kind of miss when Armour was there because he was like everything, you get on everything.
Right.
But we kind of gauge when we want to let people go on there, and so for him, I said he would be perfect. I said, so I explained, the 3 points of contact on the tank, either 2 hands and a foot or 2 feet and hands. And I'm helping him get up. As I said, I've got your waist and we're doing this. And he was just on cloud 9.
Aww.
And his mother took photos, and he looked around and he started talking about things. He says, oh man, this is just so good.
I love
I was
it.
like, breathe.
It's a highlight.
It's a highlight.
It
and then do it
is.
in reverse and get him back down. And
Safety
his mother,
first, safety first. That's
and then
right.
his mother contacted me yesterday, and she said he is still reeling from that visit, and they will be back. I always invite people, come on back because we've got more.
Yeah.
We've got more. It's just taking us a little bit because it's just a few of us. And we don't want to rush and say, just put that over there.
Right, you're going to
just
do
put
it
that
right.
over there.
Take your time and
it has
do
to
it
be
right.
succinct, and it has to be approved by the folks in Washington,
All
D.C.
those, got to cross all those T's, dot all those I's. We are out of time.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't believe it. I could first of all, I could talk about the museum for hours, and I could talk with you for days.
But it's a great event space.
Yes, it is.
And the prices are donations.
Donations.
So we do have round tables and long tables. We have linen.
All
we
of
have
the
fake
things.
trees. We've got things.
All of the
we can help
things.
you out.
Yes, my office, the Right Legacy Group, we are hosting an event there in June. I came straight back after that event and told the boss, this is what we need to do. And he said, let's make it happen.
We have a camp-in coming up with the Boy Scouts. We did the Girl Scouts last September when they were working on their Night in the Museum badge, all 38 of them, and 11 adults. And
Night at the
I say
museum.
it's your place. And we have another Night of the Museum coming up on March 4th because the Fort Knox Spouses and Community Club
Are of your events on the website?
So far, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what's
They're
your
on
website?
there. It is the General Patton Museum.
GeneralPattonMuseum.org?
.org.
Awesome. Terry, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
I know
for
you
helping
are
me.
ridiculously busy. I'm always in awe. Every time I see all this stuff on Facebook that you've gotten into, I'm like, I ground my own coffee beans this morning.
And it's for real, because when you have social media, you've got this thing you're not always the smiling person.
Right.
But what I see myself as being the advocate for people who can't get to those things. They're not in that communication.
We can live precariously.
Right. I used to say, well, you're at work, and so I get to do it. Well, now I'm at work plus some.
Right.
So I still try to do it, and the foundation has allowed me to do it versus picking one or the other. I said, really, They are together.
You are the perfect fit.
They are
You
together.
are the absolute perfect fit for Radcliffe City Council and for the Patton Museum. They're so lucky to have you. I genuinely mean that.
Thank
And
you.
we're out of time, folks.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to
you.
seeing you next time.
Yes.
You need to go see Terry. She's going to take care of you at the
Yes.
General Patton Museum. You can get on there, 31W. Have a great day.
Thank you.